winning a series against the Dodgers almost feels like too much to ask of the Giants, but they did what they needed to do to start this crucial stretch against contenders as they head towards the All-Star break. 3 games under 500, excuse me.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show for over 5 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Tax Network USA. Did you know that it's never too late to resolve your tax issues with the IRS? Don't wait. Reduce your tax debt and get help from a team of licensed tax professionals. Call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into the fact that the Giants not only won 2 of 3 against the Dodgers here, but they were one swing away from sweeping the Dodgers. This was just a really good series for the Giants. The bats erupted in this series. And Spencer Bivens was, I think, even more of a story than the Giants scoring 10 runs against the Dodgers in the finale. Like, in that particular game, they set a record for the most doubles they've hit in a game since moving to San Francisco, with 10 in this game against LA on Sunday. And they had 16 hits, and they hit well in the previous game. We'll get into the disappointment of the previous game and how, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but you almost feel like a sweep would have been, oh so sweet. Like, you can't expect to sweep the Dodgers, but man, they were so close to being able to actually do so. But Spencer Bivens, to me, was the big takeaway from game one, and just how in his first major league start, he just absolutely dominated LA, like from start to finish through 5 innings. Yeah, he gave up a solo homer to Chris Taylor. That was the only run that he allowed. He struck out Shohei Ohtani 2 times. Ohtani in the game 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. And the second strikeout of Ohtani was with 2 outs in the 5th inning with a runner on base, and he had already given up a homer to Taylor in the inning. And so, the Giants, I think the score was 9-1 at that point. And so Bob Melvin said, "Here you go, kid." And I say kid, he is a 30-year-old rookie. This is his first major league action of any kind that Spencer Bivens has ever seen this season with the Giants. Now he's appeared in 6 games. This was, again, his first career start. And he said, here you go. Here's your chance to go out there and get out Shohei Ohtani and try to earn yourself a win. And so I know pitcher wins don't actually matter. It's certainly not something I will ever use to evaluate a pitcher's talent level, but it matters to them, and they care. And, he did end up, like I said, he struck out Ohtani to end that inning. And, it's moments like that where, the quote unquote correct thing to do is probably get him out of there and put in a left-handed pitcher. And you may have seen that from, Gabe Kapler. Not necessarily, given the score was 9-1, but, you saw the emotional reaction of Spencer Bivens, and maybe you didn't see it, but if you did, I encourage you to go over to sfgiants.com and you'll find it. It's like Spencer Bivens strikes out Ohtani for the 2nd time. And the reaction, I mean, he was just so fired up. And you just love to see that. And it's kind of a stark comparison to what we've heard in recent years from you know, frankly, like Gabe Kapler specifically saying, "Oh, we don't want to be too emotional. We don't want to get too high or too low." You know, show up and show some emotion. It's far more entertaining to watch. Like seeing Spencer Bivens react that way was awesome. Like I wrote in my notes as I was watching the game, I said Spencer Bivens' reaction to striking out Ohtani to end the fifth is everything. Is everything. So I mean, that's why we watch, is for the entertainment, right? And so for him to get the chance to finish off that inning and to strike out Shohei Ohtani, and what a great start. This Dodgers lineup, it's not like they rested their guys. It was Ohtani, Teoscar Hernandez, Freddie Freeman, and then the rest of the cast of characters that the Dodgers run out there. But those guys, those three specifically, yeah, Mookie Betts is hurt right now, but still, nonetheless, I mean, to get Ohtani out 5 times like they did in this game, and for Bivens to get him out 3 times with 2 strikeouts. Freeman was 0 for 2, and then they took him out. Teoscar Hernandez was 0 for 2, and then they took him out. And I continue to be struck by, looking at the Giants side of the equation and their lineup. And most days, like, you're not seeing a lot of pinch hitting, not nearly as much. Like, I could dig into the numbers and figure out how often are they pinch hitting, like how many pinch hit plate appearances do they have this year at this time, which is about the halfway point of the season, versus last year at this time. And I think you'll find that it's significantly less. And so that's a good thing. I think fans wanted to see that, and we have seen it. So this was a game in which they didn't pinch hit at all. There were no substitutions whatsoever on the offensive side. And I'm always looking at the box scores, and we see that a lot, or there's like one pinch hitter or even just pinch runner. So that's nice. And what did they do? They put up 16 hits. They only struck out 5 times. They walked 3 times, and they scored 10 runs. And every single batter who was in the lineup had at least one hit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 9 had at least 2 hits. And Elliot Ramos continued to be awesome and had 3 hits. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of, they had a great series. There's just no doubt about it. They won 2 out of 3 here against LA. And then before that, they won 3 out of 4 against the Cubs. And so if they came into this, it's easy to forget. That's how baseball, that's the thing. It's like baseball is so weird like this, where you have your highs and you have your lows, and they can kind of just change on a dime. They came into this homestand like totally reeling. They had won the first game of their road trip that went through Chicago, Birmingham, and St. Louis, playing the Cubs and Cardinals. They won the first game in that dramatic fashion with Tyro Estrada hitting a 9th-inning 3-run homer to erase a 2-run deficit, but then they lost every game for the rest of the road trip. That's when they came home, and now they come home and they take 3 out of 4 from Chicago and 2 out of 3 from LA. So that's really all you can do, is just win series like that. And it's still kind of why I say that, man, if you could have just, with one swing of the bat, won this series or swept the series. They literally were one swing away. Instead of being 3 games under 500, excuse me, under 500 with a tough remaining schedule, or tough upcoming schedule, I should say, they could have been 42 and 43, like right on the brink of 500. So now, like, even though you've just played well here on this homestand, you're going to have to continue to play well going to Atlanta and Cleveland. 2 of the better, I mean, Atlanta is always really scary, and Cleveland is just having a great season. So we'll preview the road trip. We'll also get into how the Giants were one swing away from sweeping the series and what happened in just a minute. And before we get into it, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. And Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California. I've shared with you a lot of my picks in recent weeks, and a lot of those have been successful. And one of the things that I love too is that they've got promotions every week. Like on Tuesdays, I benefited from this, lowering select players' stat projections to help your lineup hit, and that happened with me with Logan Webb. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks for a deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Today's episode is also brought to you in part by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Giants, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news for your team, whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs. It's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. With over 14 years of experience and an A-plus rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. Whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning like I did, or finally hit that parlay this season like I didn't and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon. And be sure to mention Locked On Giants at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. All right, as promised, we're going to get into how the Giants were oh so close to actually sweeping this series. And really, you could make a case that they should have done it. Like they had it in their hands. Patrick Bailey had it in his hands to just win the middle game. You never know. Maybe the Sunday finale plays out differently, but the Giants put a whooping on James Paxton and the Dodgers on Sunday, and that was nice to see. It's not often that we see that from the Giants against LA in recent years, basically since 2021. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll finally be getting your mailbag questions, which I kind of promised last week and we didn't end up getting to. Little first half review mixed in there. Like I'm going to maybe ask for some first half related questions as we have just recently passed the halfway point of the season. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Do you have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So, the middle game of this series was wild as the Giants lost 14-7. And you might look at that and say they got blown out. Well, no, they didn't. Yes, they did, but also no, they didn't, if that makes any sense at all. And game one was a 5-3 win. Remember the walk-off homer by Brett Wisely, which we did discuss on a Saturday podcast. So anyhow, 14-7, this was a wild game. The Giants went ahead 1-0 in the first. The Dodgers went ahead 2-1 in the third. And then the Giants went ahead 5-2 in the third. And so once it's 5-2, this is where not having your normal starting rotation bit them, because it was a bullpen game. The Giants went with, this is too many pitchers to even count just by glancing at it. I would have to go through. It looks like 8 pitchers, maybe 9, 8 or 3, 6, 7. Okay, 7 pitchers Looks like the Dodgers used just about as many because they got to Tyler Glasnow, who's been dominant this year. So just another Giants offense has been great in, recent games and overall in the season. I continue to point out that the hitting hasn't really been the issue. If you look into it closely, it's been that they've allowed too many runs, and a 14-7 loss is a good illustration of that. Again, you give up 14, it means you got to score 15 or more to win, and that's an impossible task essentially. So, but at the same time, you can look at one Patrick Bailey at bat in the 10th and say you could have won it if you just made some contact, And so Bailey, I'm sure, feels horrible about that. But anyway, the pitching went Eric Miller, Spencer Howard, Randy Rodriguez, Taylor Rogers, Ryan Walker, Camilo Doval, Sean Jelly, with most of the pitchers, or about half of them, pitching more than one inning. So Jelly, Walker, Rodriguez, Howard all pitched more than an inning, with Howard going the longest, 2 2/3, gave up 6 earned runs, 6 hits, 2 walks, no strikeouts, and a homer. And so we'll get into what that meant for Spencer Howard. But anyway, so the Giants go ahead 5-2. And if you have, Blake Snell or Robbie Ray or Kyle Harrison or Alex Cobb, any of those guys, then maybe theoretically you can hold on to a lead of 5-2. And the Giants later tacked on another run in the 5th to make it, 6 runs on their part through 5 innings. Like, if you score 6 runs basically in any game, you should have a really good shot to win, but they end up losing 14-7. So right after the Giants had scored 4, they give up 4 in the top of the 4th for the Dodgers to retake the lead. The Giants then tied it in the 5th, and it remained tied until the 10th. So in the 10th, LA went ahead. They get that free runner, and they scored that free runner in the 10th, but that was all. And so, the Giants then, first batter of the bottom of the 10th, I think it was Nick Ahmed. He did not move the runner up, and so it's looking like, okay, you're in deep water here. You've got to get a hit now to tie the game. It can't just be a sac fly or whatever. And David VR is used as a pinch hitter for Tyler Fitzgerald, and it kind of proves to be a stroke of genius, as VR, who's done just a really nice job, and he had a good game in the finale too. Started at first base and had 2 hits. VR hit a game-tying double against Daniel Hudson, who's got an ERA on the season of 1.87. So huge hit for VR to tie the game. And then they, I believe they intentionally walk Lamont Wade after it gets like a 3-1 count. And then Elliot Ramos gets an infield single to load the bases with 1 out for Patrick Bailey. And so here you go. Here's your chance for Bailey to just simply, hit a fly ball, like a medium deep fly ball. The runner on third at that point was, I suppose it was David VR. And so maybe a medium deep fly ball doesn't quite get it done. He's definitely slow, I would say, David VR. So anyway, there's just, a hit, a slow swinging bunt ground ball, like anything, but he strikes out. And so obviously, look, hitters only come through in that type of situation about half the time in general. And so you can't just automatically say, okay, that run's going to score. And plus, that's like on average. And you're not always playing, the Dodgers, who are like one of the best teams in baseball, clearly. And then also you're not always facing pitchers of the caliber of Daniel Hudson. And so, in that situation, although the fact that it's bases loaded, 1 out, there's a lot of pressure on the pitcher to like throw strikes. I think Bailey got ahead in the count. I don't know if it was 2-0, but Bailey was ahead in the count at some point. And anyway, he struck out. And then on the first pitch, Matt Chapman popped out. And then Dodgers scored 7 runs in the top of the 11th. So it just, the floodgates opened, and LA, what could have been a 8-7 win, or I get it only could have possibly been 8-7 or a grand slam 10-7. No, 11-7. If Bailey had no, I guess a ground rule. Anyway, I'm that none of that matters at all. But a ground rule double would have scored 2. Homer would have scored 4. Anything else would have scored just 1. Um, so anyway, it could have been a win. Instead, it turns into a double up loss, 14-7. So I don't like this from a run differential standpoint. Also, in the finale, Dodgers got 2 runs with 2 outs in the 9th inning. So Giants could have won 10-2, but instead it was 10-4. So you're like one pitch away from like gaining 10 runs on your run differential, 1 or 2 pitches away, 1 pitch in each game from like being plus 10 in your run differential, even with Bailey just getting 1 run in, let alone not hitting a grand slam or a ground rule double or whatever. Anyway, this is just how I think. None of that really matters, but the loss certainly matters. So again, instead of being 42-43, I feel like there's a big difference there between that and being 41-44, especially because of the upcoming schedule. So playing LA was part of the tough stretch they're going through. So coming up in just a minute, we will preview what is to come, where they're going, who they're playing, what those records are, and what they need to do to stay relevant in this wild card race, and also give you an update on the roster as one of these performances had a consequence for one player in particular. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked on Giants is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports, obviously. I love them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs have finished in the NBA and the NHL, we get fewer games. And the sports aren't sportsing quite like I want them to, but FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most of your summer. Visit FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. And so baseball, obviously, this is a baseball show, is in full swing. And the beauty of those other sports being over and baseball going on, baseball going on, is that there's tons of games every day. And coming up on Tuesday, the Giants in Atlanta. Current odds have the Braves as heavy favorites here. The Giants at plus 164 on the money line, Braves at minus 196. The Giants at the run spread of 1.5, plus 1.5, with odds of minus 128. So I might be interested there because you're giving me a run and a half to work with and saying that basically, I've got that backwards. I always get confused. I use the other like European style of odds. But anyway, there's so much to look at FanDuel with baseball in full swing. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. And FanDuel is, again, an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. All right, as promised, we are going to get into the upcoming schedule. Why I just somehow feel like this, even not sweeping, was like a kind of painful outcome for the Giants, even though they won 2 out of 3 somehow. Because like if you had asked me prior to this homestand if they would go 5-2, would you take it? I would absolutely take it. But as it played out, knowing they were one swing away from going 6-1, that to me, it like, if you miss the playoffs by a game, I may look back like that Bailey at bat. I may look back and say that was, one of the bigger missed opportunities of the entire season right there. And so anyway, thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers tomorrow, a mailbag that is also kind of a first half in review. I don't want to get too much into the trade deadline. I know that there's going to be a lot of questions about that, but maybe I'll kind of specify that I'm not looking to get too into the trade deadline at this point in time and do want to do some first half review. Also a reminder to check out Postcast with Eric Engel right after every game on Locked On Sports San Francisco on YouTube live. So you can join the conversation immediately after the game with Eric Engel on Locked On Giants postcast. And then that feed shows up on the normal feed for this podcast, Locked On Giants, but it doesn't show up on the YouTube channel because it has its own YouTube channel. So anyway, check that out. It's just an additional thing we offer you here at Locked On Giants. And a reminder, you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Giants. So the upcoming schedule is tough. They are, it started with this, series against the Dodgers, and they took care of business, winning 2 out of 3. So that's great. And now it doesn't get any easier. They're off today, as you're probably aware, on Monday. And then they are in Atlanta for 3, and then Cleveland for 3. And then they're off next Monday. And then they play at home, the Blue Jays and the Twins. And then that's the end of the quote unquote first half. It's the All-Star break after that. So just one 6-game road trip and then one 6-game homestand. And then it's the All-Star break. Kind of unbelievable that it's here already. But, I was just thinking about this earlier. And if you go into Atlanta and Cleveland and lose 2 out of 3 in each city, say, because you're going to be, that's probably the most likely outcome just based on you're the road team and those are good teams. And also, sweeping a team is hard, even if it's, even if some of you might think, oh, the Braves are just so much better than the Giants or whatever, which by the way, I mean, the Braves get this. Giants have scored 380 runs. Braves have scored 354. I bet you most people wouldn't have guessed that. And have they played the same number of games? Giants have played one less game than the Braves. One fewer game. Fewer. And the Giants have scored almost 30 more runs. And so that's just an example of stop focusing on the offense so much as the issue for the Giants. The Braves have given up 301 runs. The Giants have given up 409. And the Giants play in a pitcher-friendly park. So anyway, Braves at home are 26-14 this season. On the road, they're 20-22. So they're not having the best year. Ronald Acuna Jr. is out for the year. He's their best player, the MVP from last season. But they've played great at home. That is just a tough place to go into. And so, losing 2 out of 3 is probably the most likely outcome. They do have, Hayden Birdsong making his second major league start in the opener, and then it's Hicks and Webb. And so, anything can happen in baseball, from a sweep to sweeping the Braves. Like, I wouldn't be shocked any way about it. I mean, obviously the probably least likely outcome is sweeping the Braves on the road there. But my point being, then they go to Cleveland, and Cleveland is 26-9 at home. 26-9. Nobody really even expected the Guardians to be all that good this season. The whole Central Division, well, not the whole Central, but the Royals being 47-39. The Twins are 10 games over 500, and the Guardians 52-30, leading that division by 6 games. Nobody expected that. That is a total surprise, and they've earned it. I mean, their run differential is like basically plus 100. They've scored 407 runs and allowed 309. So they've allowed 100 fewer runs than the Giants, and they've scored like almost 30 more. And so, yeah, right after you play the tough Braves, you go into Cleveland to play a team that's just playing great this season. And so again, if you lose 2 out of 3 in both places, then you go 2-4 on the road trip. And if you go 2-4 on the road trip, you fall 2 more games under 500. So you would be 43-48. 43-48. Somehow I thought 2-4. So you lose 2 more games. Right now they're 3 games. I was thinking they would be 6 games under 500, but they would be 5. So 42-48. But that's 43-48, excuse me. That's not great, right? And then you come home and you play the Blue Jays, who are having a tough season themselves. at 36 and 38 and 46, and then the Twins, who, like I just said, are 47 and 37. So anyway, my point being, I feel like the Giants need to go in to Atlanta and Cleveland and try to win one of these series at least, and it's not going to be easy, but it feels important to me that they win one of these two series. If you can just lose one and win one and have a 500 road trip, I would feel okay about their position. But if you come home and you're 5 games under 500, it's just, you're going to have to then play. I think they just really have to like stay afloat. And I feel like playing 500 on the road, even against a couple of tough teams, is important. You could survive it if you go 2-4. It's really just one extra loss at the end of the day versus 3-3. But given their current position, they need to consistently win, and time does start to kind of run out here. Not quite yet, but you can't just start falling and falling and falling. And in that case, it becomes more and more steep of a battle to get into the playoffs. So anyway, lastly, just want to mention Spencer Howard. He had this great outing before the start, or not start, but outing against the Dodgers, in which he really didn't have a great outing. And then he gets DFA'd. So tough business. One great outing, one horrible outing, back to back, and then DFA'd. So we'll see if Spencer Howard gets, traded or claimed, or if he clears waivers. But tough business for him to get DFA'd after 2 outings ago being brilliant. And then they called up Landon Roop, who helped them cover innings. That's the thing, is right now they need help covering innings given the decimated state of their pitching staff. And so Roop did pitch. I seem to have closed out that box score, but he finished off the Dodgers finale game. Well, he came close. He got 2 outs in the 9th, and then Tyler Rogers came in. But Roop went 2 2/3, so saved the pen a little bit, and then an off day today. So they should be somewhat rested going into Atlanta. Anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow we'll be breaking down the first half and getting to some of your questions about the first half for the Giants. And I can't wait. So Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like the show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. Helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thank you to everyone who's done so already. Cannot wait to be with you again tomorrow. Look out on Twitter for the prompt. Thanks again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.